The story of India's independence begins long before 1947. It is a tale woven through centuries of struggle, resilience, and the undying spirit of a nation yearning for freedom. It starts in the 17th century with the arrival of the British East India Company. What began as a commercial venture soon transformed into a powerful political entity. Initially traders, the company gradually seized control of vast swathes of India. Through a combination of diplomacy, deceit, and military might, they established their dominance. The British Crown assumed direct rule after the 1857 uprising, marking the beginning of the British Raj. This was a turning point, as the British tightened their grip on the subcontinent. This period saw the systematic exploitation of India's resources and people. The British extracted wealth, leaving the local population impoverished and struggling. The British imposed their rule, their laws, and their way of life on a land with its own rich history and culture. They sought to reshape India in their own image, often disregarding local traditions and customs. This fueled resentment and sowed the seeds of resistance. The Indian populace, though diverse in language, religion, and culture, found common ground in their shared suffering. Early resistance movements, often localized and sporadic, challenged British authority. These were the first sparks of a fire that would eventually engulf the entire nation. Religious leaders, local chiefs, and ordinary Indians rose up against unfair taxes, economic exploitation, and the erosion of their traditional way of life. Their courage and determination laid the groundwork for future struggles. These uprisings, though often brutally suppressed, demonstrated the growing discontent among Indians. The British response was harsh, but it only strengthened the resolve of the people. The First War of Indian Independence in 1857, also known as the Sepoy Mutiny, shook the foundations of British rule. It was a watershed moment, revealing the deep-seated anger and desire for self-rule. It served as a powerful symbol of Indian resistance, inspiring future generations to fight for their freedom. The legacy of these early fighters would echo through the decades, culminating in the eventual liberation of India. The late 19th and early 20th centuries witnessed the rise of Indian nationalism, a powerful movement that sought to challenge the British colonial rule and assert India's right to self-governance. Educated Indians, exposed to Western ideas of democracy, liberty, and self-determination, began to question the legitimacy of British rule. They were inspired by the principles of freedom and equality that were gaining ground in Europe and America. In response to their growing discontent, they formed organizations like the Indian National Congress in 1885. This body became a platform to demand greater autonomy, representation, and eventually complete independence from British rule. Early nationalist leaders like Dadabhai Naoroji, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, and Bal Gangadhar Tilak played pivotal roles. They advocated for self-rule through constitutional means, using their intellect and oratory to inspire the masses. These leaders exposed the economic drain caused by British policies, highlighting how India's wealth was being siphoned off to Britain. They demanded greater Indian participation in governance and sought to reform the exploitative economic practices. Through their persistent efforts, these early nationalists laid the groundwork for the mass movement that was to follow. Their meetings and discussions sowed the seeds of a larger struggle for freedom. Their efforts helped create a national consciousness, uniting Indians from different regions, religions, and linguistic backgrounds under the banner of freedom. This unity was crucial in building a collective identity and a shared vision for an independent India. The arrival of Mahatma Gandhi on the political scene in the early 20th century transformed India's struggle for independence. His unique approach and steadfast commitment to non-violence brought a new dimension to the freedom movement. Gandhi, with his philosophy of satyagraha, or non-violent resistance, mobilized millions of Indians. This philosophy was not just a strategy, but a way of life, emphasizing the power of truth and moral courage. He turned the fight for freedom into a mass movement, uniting people from all walks of life. His ability to connect with the masses and inspire them to join the cause was unparalleled.
Gandhi's leadership and campaigns like the non-cooperation movement from 1920 to 22, which encouraged Indians to withdraw their support from British institutions, and the Salt Satyagraha in 1930, which protested the British monopoly on salt, galvanized the Indian population. These movements were pivotal in awakening national consciousness. Millions participated in boycotts of British goods, refused to pay taxes, and engaged in various forms of civil disobedience. They courted arrest, willingly facing imprisonment, and in doing so, they shook the foundations of British rule, demonstrating the power of collective action.
Gandhi's message of non-violence resonated not just in India but across the world. His principles influenced global leaders and movements, showing that peaceful resistance could bring about significant change. His unwavering belief in the power of truth and justice inspired countless others fighting for their own freedom and equality. Gandhi's legacy continues to inspire movements for civil rights and social justice around the globe. World War II proved to be a turning point in India's struggle for independence. The war drained Britain's resources and weakened its global standing. India's contribution to the war effort further strengthened its claim for freedom. The Quit India movement of 1942, launched by Gandhi, demanded immediate independence. Though met with brutal suppression, it demonstrated the unwavering resolve of the Indian people. By war's end, it was clear that British rule in India was untenable. The Labour government in Britain, elected in 1945, recognised the inevitability of Indian independence. Negotiations began for a peaceful transfer of power, but the path to freedom was fraught with challenges. India's independence came at a heavy price. The partition of the country into India and Pakistan, based on religious lines, led to one of the largest mass migrations in human history. Millions were displaced, and communal violence claimed countless lives.
On August 15, 1947, India finally shed the shackles of colonialism and emerged as an independent nation. I hoisted the Indian flag at the Red Fort, marking the birth of a new era.
Independence brought both joy and sorrow. The joy of freedom was tempered by the pain of partition. The newly independent nations faced the daunting task of rebuilding and healing. The echoes of the 1857 uprising, though brutally suppressed, resonated throughout India's struggle for independence. The courage and sacrifice of those who fought in 1857 served as a powerful symbol of resistance. The events of 1857 forced the British to rethink their policies in India. The East India Company was dissolved and direct rule by the British Crown was established. While it tightened British control, it also fueled nationalist sentiments. The legacy of 1857 served as a reminder that British rule was not invincible. It inspired future generations of Indians to fight for their freedom, culminating in the eventual triumph of 1947. The partition of India remains a painful chapter in the nation's history. The communal violence that accompanied partition led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands and the displacement of millions. Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs, who had lived together for centuries, were pitted against each other. The horrors of partition left deep scars on the collective psyche of both India and Pakistan. The legacy of partition continues to cast a long shadow. The two nations, born out of a shared history, remain locked in a cycle of mistrust and conflict. India, since its independence, has emerged as a vibrant democracy and a global power. Despite facing numerous challenges, the nation has made remarkable progress in various fields. From poverty to illiteracy, India has been battling and overcoming its challenges. The journey has been arduous, but the spirit of resilience, inherited from its freedom fighters, continues to guide the nation. India's journey is a testament to the indomitable spirit of its people. It stands as a beacon of hope and a symbol of what a nation can achieve with determination and unity. Independence Day in India is a celebration of freedom, a tribute to the sacrifices of countless freedom fighters, and a reaffirmation of the nation's commitment to its founding principles. On this day, Every year, Indians from all walks of life come together to celebrate their hard-won freedom. The Prime Minister's address from the Red Fort serves as a reminder of the nation's journey and its future aspirations. The day is marked by patriotic fervor, cultural programs, and a sense of national pride. It is a day to reflect on the past, celebrate the present, and look towards the future with hope and optimism. As India steps into the future, it carries with it the lessons of its past and the aspirations of its people. The journey ahead is filled with both challenges and opportunities. The dream of a Viksit Bharat, a developed and prosperous India, continues to drive the nation forward. The pursuit of economic growth, social justice, and technological advancement remains paramount. India's success in the 21st century will depend on its ability to harness its vast potential, embrace its diversity, and uphold the values of democracy and inclusivity. The future of a free India is bright, and its role on the global stage is only set to grow.